So I've been very open with my kids about not just getting a job for the sake of a job, but what is it that you would love to do? What is it that, is that you're passionate about? You have to find that thing that is going to, provide a solution or a service to somebody.
That's Tristan Betts, and this is the Happy Creator Podcast. Tristan is the owner and founder of Inspired Energy. She's a career coach, body language expert, and HR professional who has a passion for people and connection. With over 25 years' experience working in various industries, from banking to logistics, government, and not-for-profit organizations, she has seen it all when it comes to people and their work. Tristan really thrives on human interaction and believes that connection and communication are core to human existence. In this episode, we talk about how her experience with face mapping has deepened her commitment to creating more meaningful connections with people in their work, their families, and relationships. As a single mom for almost 12 years, she has successfully navigated her 2 children to independence and adulthood. Her learnings and experience help her clients to find a new path to freedom after finding themselves dealing with the challenges of parenting solo. Her vision is that all women, solo moms especially, find financial freedom and lead the dream life that they desire. This is our conversation. Tristan, hello. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. How happy are you, my lovely?
Hey, Juliet. I'm really happy today. And I'm very grateful to be here with you.
My pleasure. So the first question I ask everyone, Tristan, is how much did they pay you to give up on your dreams at the beginning of your life?
Oh, how much they pay me to give up on my dreams? Well, to be honest with you, looking back, I don't think I had any big dreams. I think all I really knew when I was finishing school was that I wanted to go to university. And I think I was sort of trained or, positioned to actually go in pursuit of financial, gain. So when I actually chose what I was going to study at university, it was economics, which I hated. So I could get a job. But I also did study history, which I was very passionate about. So it was quite a really weird combination. And when I finished uni, it was actually during a recession here in Australia. And it took me quite a few years to actually find my path. And I probably went back to uni a couple of times. And finally, I fell into HR. Human resources, and I pretty much spent most of my career working in human resources.
And have you been enjoying that, or you were like, I'm doing this, I like it, puts food on the table, society wants me to do it, kids to feed, things like that? Was it more like that, or were you like, because some people love HR, but I'm not sure you were one of those.
I did actually. I did love HR, and I love certain aspects of HR. So I loved connecting with people. I loved helping people. I loved supporting people. I loved training and teaching people. I didn't like so much the discipline side of things. I am actually a qualified teacher as well. So I did go into teaching originally, but it was the discipline side of having to tell people what to do wasn't really my thing at school. But ironically, that's also what you had to do in HR. So I did, for the majority, loved HR. It was just working with some toxic bosses that probably really put me on the path of the career coaching. And so I love helping women in particular get out of toxic work environments. So that's probably where my real passion and career drive actually lies, in helping people realize that they don't have to work in an environment that's not, not a job like what you were saying at the beginning of the podcast, gets you jumping out of bed every day. So yeah, we put up with a lot of, a lot of people put up with, and I know I have put up with being in not so great jobs because we have to feed the kids, or we have to, put a roof over our heads or food on the table. But, we sort of kind of get stuck.
Yeah, that's the thing. We do get stuck. And sometimes we realize very early on, well, actually, this is not what I want to do. And I know there's been a lot of critique, about the millennials are like, well, I don't want to be doing this and that. But in a way, maybe they've got it right. Pursue your dream the sooner that you can, I think, instead of being sucked into this convention about what you should be doing, and your parents will be happy for you to do that, but you're not living your parents' lives or your friends' life, you're living your own life. And I think that's the issue, is that we sometimes are scared of owning who we are and owning our dreams and pursuing in fear of failure. But is there such a thing as failure? There isn't, is there?
No, I don't think so. But I think your point about, what you want to do when you're younger is, in my experience, what people are passionate about when they're, as children is typically was something that they really should pursue in terms of their career. But like me, I, didn't pursue the whole, whatever it was that I was passionate about. And to ask me, connecting with people back then, I was more around, getting into a banking or finance kind of role, which I did for about 5 months before I realized it was horrendous and it wasn't for me. It's like, get me out of here. But, I had and I think what I really love now is actually being my own boss, because, working in toxic environments, you don't have to report to anybody. You can do your own thing. And I was thinking back the other day, and my first ever job was that I owned my own business when I was 13. In Australia, when I was younger, you weren't able to officially get a job, a paying job, until you are 14 and 9 months. So when I was
9 months, okay.
Yeah, I think it's changed now, and like 14 is kind of the age that you can actually get a job. But at 13, I was like, wanting to do something. So it was a bit creative, actually. I actually started a little business as a clown, going to little kids' parties and entertaining them, and get dressed up with the clown suit and the face painting, and went along to these parties and gave the parents 2 hours of entertainment for their children, and we were charging like $20 for 2 clowns for 2 hours. So weren't making a lot of money in the initial stages, but it was very successful by the end of it. I think over 6 years, I think we did like 400 parties.
That's not bad at all. And look at you, little entrepreneur at 13.
I know. And then I sort of got sucked into the vortex of living the dream life that you're supposed to live, of getting a job and having a family, and, the great Australian dream.
Well, I think it's the great worldwide dream, but was it more because your parents pushed you to do that, or was it you that imposed that on yourself? Because most of the time it will be parents, family, be like, oh, well, you need to get a 9 to 5, you need to get money, you need to, it's all of that. But some parents are like, oh, wow, you want to do that? Go for it. So how did it work for you?
Yeah, interesting. I think the parental influence is certainly there, but I think too I was very driven and very focused, and was probably the first person in my family that had been to university. So it was kind of like, I wanted to be a career person. But the irony was the career kind of left, the career drive left when I had my children, and I had them in my late 20s. But I always thought I was this big career girl, but once the kids came along, the career became secondary. So yeah, that's the term I keep hearing. Your career, what is your career path? And you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing tomorrow. Why are you asking me what I'm doing in 5 years? And this has always been, especially in my 20s and 30s, that was a big question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I was like, what am I supposed to answer this question? HR, sometimes they've got these questions, and you just
look at them and wonder, where did you find these questions? Who said you should be asking that? And now when I look at it, and I hear about all these different HR questions, coming, especially from the tech companies, and I go like, well, that makes more sense, because if how you see yourself in life and what you want on your personal life, if you're happy there, then you'll be able to integrate that in your work life. And a lot of companies are still missing the boat on that, and not saying, well, you can't work at home at all. But if you're a bit flexible, then suddenly the employee starts working more and giving you more. So you've got to find a right balance, I think. So basically, you got into career coaching, and inadvertently got into face mapping. I was really surprised about that one, like I said earlier. So what did you finally give up to do that?
What did I give up to do that? Well, the plan was to do both. That was the plan. So I actually found my way into face mapping because I wanted to do something more. I always knew that I wanted to have my own business again, and that was always the goal. And the goal was to work in the full-time job as a HR. I think I was a workforce capability coordinator or something at the time, and I wanted to, it wasn't my dream job. So it was like I needed to create that myself. And so I went looking for other things that I could do. And I found a I went to a Mind, Body, Spirit festival and found the psychosomatic therapy, I think it was college that they had here in Australia, and signed up for their course, and I wanted to do that. But what happened was that I finished all my studies, did all of that kind of discreetly because I didn't want anyone to know. But then, and the plan was to gradually, build the business and move out. But unfortunately, I was in such a toxic work environment, I ended up having to leave. And I, then was like, okay, well, I've got to get this business up and running. And it took a little bit of time. So it didn't work out the way that I planned. No, it never does. But it was like, yeah. And someone said to me, you don't actually, a lot of people don't just quit their job and, start the business, which was probably a bit of a risk, but something that, was right for me.
So you said something that you were kind of hiding when you were doing this. So you were not owning your truth just yet.
No, because face mapping, you'd never heard of it. A lot of people haven't heard of it. It's a little bit, people are a little bit put off by it. I remember one of my colleagues who did know that I was studying it. Every time, he used to sit next to me and he'd be like, are you reading my face? Are you looking at my face? And I was like, no. So I tend not to do it to people unless somebody asks me, because it can really reveal a lot about somebody. So yeah, I do use it on occasions when it suits me, but I tend not to do it all the time. Otherwise, yeah, it is a bit, it can reveal things that, people do get a little bit intimidated by it.
Well, I'm not surprised, if you're having tea or coffee with a friend and then basically suddenly you stop, not staring as such, but you're like, oh, something is going on there. I'd probably be like, okay, what's going on, woman? Tell me what are you reading on my face?
Yeah.
Weird,
and that's true. And it's true because you see different things at different times. And but it's the people there. Then I get the other end of the spectrum where people are like so intrigued, like, tell me more. What can you see? It's like, if you feel like you're actually doing a party trick. So yeah, you do get both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, well, I think it's when someone also is spiritual around you, and can talk to guides or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that sometimes they do get messages, that like, do I tell them, not tell them? What do I do? Because if the person in front of you is not really into it, it's not easy to communicate. And now we've got more and more of these different, everybody labels everything a job, and I'm like, it's not a job, it's a purpose. I don't know. Someone needs to come up with a new term, of what it is that we do. Because for me, the job is, well, 9 to 5, whatever that entails. And so we've got all these different passions, purposes, new way of thinkings that are popping up and that we're discovering. We're part of the same Facebook group. That's how we met. So I'm seeing all these different things and I get excited because I'm like, ooh, never heard about that one. What is that? And I'm pretty sure that some people go like, oh, like, my God, what is this thing? Another bonker, you know, that's trying to do something, or maybe they're a bit whack jobs, you know, or anything like that. So it's also about opening people's mind about what it is that's out there.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I saw this thing the other day where it said, you know, you shouldn't be asking your kids what job they want to do later. You should ask them what problem they want to solve, because then they'll study very different things to solve that problem, which is a great way to look at it, if I'm honest.
Mm. I
Because
agree. And it's interesting. I had a similar conversation with my daughter's 20, and she's, you know, into acting and singing and that kind of thing. And she studied at an acting school for 12 months and then took a gap year and is now kind of working out what she wants to do. And I can see she teaches drama to young children. And she said to me today, oh, I think I'd like to go and do a course in, you know, becoming a teacher's aide, because she's created a program that she's run at a school and teaching kids. And I said to her, that's what you need to do. And she goes, oh, but somebody suggested I go and do this other course so I could be a teacher's aide. And she goes, but I don't want to be a teacher's aide. And I went, well, why would you go and study the course, you know? And I said to her, you got to follow your heart. So I've been very open with my kids about exactly that, not just getting a job for the sake of a job, but what is it that you would love to do? What is it that, you know, is that you're passionate about? So I completely agree with you. You know, you have to find that thing that is going to, you know, provide a solution or a service to somebody, because what she's looking at doing, they don't teach drama in our junior primary schools over here. So drama is a subject at high school, but it's not actually taught with the little ones. So yeah, so there you go. That's just an example that happened today with my own child. So.
Well, I think, you know, it's always important to have that conversation. And I don't know in Australia, but here I've noticed something is that the state schools, you know, create employees. We teach people, you know, okay, we're gonna teach you how to be a human being, you know, and give you knowledge, and then you can go and work for someone else. And often the public schools or private schools, depending where you are on this planet, but the same thing in this country, they teach you how to go and pursue your dream, which you really see a difference in the education. You know, having been chief of staff, you know, and working with all these different high-powered people, I've noticed over the years, you know, that their kids would go to all these public schools, you know, and be like, wow, they're studying, they've got the normal curriculum, but they're so open-minded about a lot of different things, you know, and they go like, well, I might be doing this and I might be doing that. You know, there is a reason that when you look at Eton, you know, you've got all these actors that came out of it, because it's like, okay, go and pursue your dream. And then it creates a problem for, unfortunately, all the actors that did not come from these public schools, you know, and they're like, oh, well, we're not getting the work because these people are getting the work. That's a whole different story. But my point on this is that we've got to, any school, we've got to teach people to, you know, we've got to teach the little ones that they can be anything. And they don't have to come into a little box, because when you start putting people in boxes, then suddenly their dreams get shattered.
And, you know, what some of the things that my kids have said to me is that they don't teach the basic life skills at school. I don't know what the system is like in the UK, but in Australia, like, you know, the curriculum is very structured, and there's, you know, they teach about, you know, history and, you know, Pythagoras' theorem and all these useless, some of these things are useless in terms of real life, what, you know, strategies, and, you know, even just like things like budgeting and being able to, you know what to do when, you know, to check that you're being paid the right amount of money, and just really simple basic life skills. You know, my kids, you know, even how to write a resume. I don't know what sort of, over here, career, what are they called? Career counselors in schools aren't actually a role. They're just another thing that's given to a teacher as a job that they have to do. So there's not a lot of support for the kids to actually find their path either. Here in the system.
That is true. They're talking about bringing up some of these classes here, like how to cook and stuff like that, daily life. And I think it's kind of important, not make it like 5 days a week, but once a week, have a couple of hours, how to cook pasta, because you're going to go to university and you need to feed yourself. And so not every single parent will teach you how to cook pasta or anything else, because they're not really into food, but you need to go and survive once you're out there. You can't live off takeaways, or ready-made meals, because that's expensive. And when you're a student, we all know we have no money.
That's true.
So you've got to learn that. And it's true what you said. Nobody teaches you about money. And the conversation about money is also a very difficult one, because parents won't talk about it. They just say, oh, be careful about the money. That's going to be a whole other podcast that I'm going to do on this. But it's really, we need people, you can't keep throwing the word money to people and not explain what money is, and how money and why people become fearful of money, and everything. I think most of us have been fearful of money, until we basically got rid of all our beliefs and we're like, okay, we need to get a handle on this, because otherwise we're just going to be scared of it and we're never going to see it. So it's all about that, actually. So yeah, that's going to be another podcast. That's going to be super interesting. Probably get you on it. I'm probably going to get different people and their views on it. So face mapping, we were talking about that. That's what I'm really interested in. Not that I'm not interested in the rest, but face mapping is really what grabbed me when I saw your little message on Facebook. So in our daily lives, how do people use that?
Yeah, well, as I said to you, for me, it's about being able to connect with people. So, the one thing I did want to say is that it is actually a science. So it's not psychic or spiritual. It's actually based on science. So it's actually, the scientific name for it is physiognomy, and it actually helps you to connect with people. I can tell pretty much straight away how somebody thinks, how they feel, or how they act.
It's kind of spooky, though.
It is kind of spooky, but you know what? We were all face readers when we were born, because we didn't have any language skills. So we learnt, how to read our, carer's face, because that's, the only form of communication that we had. And then we obviously develop language skills, and then we lose the ability to read things. And, sometimes you'll meet somebody and you'll get this feeling and you're like, what is it that I'm seeing or feeling? And you're like, you can't quite put a name to it. It's because, you obviously what you're seeing or what you're feeling is, trying to tell you something. You can, for me, I run workshops and telling how people, how they can actually read people so that they can put a pitch to them if they're actually in sales, trying to connect with somebody and work out how to actually get them to how they like to make decisions. In the workplace, it can really give you a great understanding of someone's personality. So it's a really fun team building activity. It's we use in HR, we use Myers-Briggs, and we use DISC and profiling tools. They all take time in terms of learning, getting a questionnaire completed, and then using, putting all that through some sort of system to actually spit out a report. Whereas with face mapping, once you know a few real basics, you actually can read someone's personality quite quickly. I use it in recruitment. So not that it's actually a decision-making tool, but I can tell how people like to operate in their work environment as opposed to their home environment. So it's a really good way for me to be able to read how they think and how they actually operate in a work environment. I can actually see on their face. So I can see how good they are at starting projects, whether they get halfway and just give up, or whether they lose energy. So all of those things come into play. with my career coaching clients, I will, if they're actually going for an interview, I'll teach them how to read the people's faces that are interviewing them. So we'll go and stalk the people on LinkedIn, have a little bit of a look at their face, and determine how, you know, it's best to actually pitch yourself as a prospective employee to them.
Well,
which is really useful. It gives you the upper hand.
That's really handy. I wish I had that before, you know?
Yeah. They use it in America. I know there are some people that they use it in jury selections, so they're able to.
Yes, I've heard of that actually.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure it was called face mapping or whatever it was called, but yes, I think we've all seen some TV shows, you know, where they go, okay, we need to jury. What do they? How are they going to do that? Yeah, like big bucks in the US when it comes to law.
Yeah,
but in you know, everyday life, okay, because we're not going to go for a job every day, but I think a lot of people will probably go on a date. So how can we use it in the dating world? Because I think that will excite people around.
Yes. I have had some of my clients who have been dating send me photos of prospective partners and ask me for feedback. And I did actually get asked a long time ago if I'd actually, you know, promote my services on Tinder, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that, but I'm happy to share some tips with the listeners.
I think you know, the most one is like, is the guy or the woman, you know, a psychopath, you know, or you know, and then it's like, is this man gonna try to, you know, to roofie me, or, you know, things where I think, because as a woman we want to feel secure when we go on a date, and sometimes we know we've got this gut feeling, so this I align to something else, but sometimes, you know, you can't read someone, you know, they're quite reserved, or they know, you know, not to show anything, so it's really hard. For all you know, this person is fabulous, and most of the time they are, but there's always the odd one out that you want to kind of filter and feel safe as a woman.
So what I would say in response to that is, obviously always, you know, go with your intuition. If you're getting a gut feeling that the person isn't who they say they are, then acknowledge that and, you know, go with that. In terms of the comment you just made about psychopath, there is one thing that I, you know, to say to people to avoid is when, and I'm going to actually comment on the eyes, because the eyes really, they reveal so much, and they really are the window into the soul. So going back to your comment about how do you identify a psychopath, yes, you know, obviously there are people out there that have certain characteristics. So with the eyes, if the actual eyelid is actually cuts across the pupil, so you cannot see the top of the eye, they're usually people that have a lot of internal issues going on and could be potentially violent. So that's the one kind of person I would say to avoid. But look, the eyes, you know, and we could spend hours talking about what you can read in people's eyes, but I'll keep it to a few simple things to actually, you know, that you could actually use. As I said before, the two sides of the face show you the different ways that people operate in their private life as opposed to their working or their external life. And I tend to find the left side of the face is the personal life. And I don't like to generalize, but a lot of men tend to have their left eye is a little smaller than the right. And that means that they are a little bit more guarded in sharing their feelings, you know, their personal feelings. So yeah, have a look at their eyes. In terms of intimacy requirements, you can see really quickly whether or not people have what kind of intimacy requirements they have. So you can see this in the eyelids. When you see a lot of the eyelid, so we're talking about when the eyes are actually open. Okay. And when you see a lot of the eyelid, this person has a really great need for intimacy in a relationship, and they love to be connected to their partner. So they love sharing all areas of their life with their partner. The challenge for the people with the bigger eyelids is that giving their partner enough of their own space. So yeah. When you can see a little bit, so the eyelids are open, the eyes are open, a little bit more of the lid. The person appreciates intimacy, but they're also able to be on their own and have their own independence. They're neither a loner or they're overly independent. And then there's the third option, which is when people have no lids at all. So you cannot, when their eyes are open, you cannot see any of the eyelid. These people have like extreme focus and really need a lot of their own personal space. So they're not the type that like to be smothered by a partner, or they definitely don't like being, controlled by anybody else. So if they're focused on doing something or they're doing a project, they're not really open to the demands of their partner. And but they will seek intimacy when they're ready. So from my own personal experience, I'm one of these people who loves intimacy and likes to be connected. And I was dating a lot of men that had no eyelids at all, visible. So hello, it was not a good thing. So yeah, that's probably, in terms of dating, that's probably one of the biggest things I could share with your listeners is to
remind me where I stand, so like that can scare away all the other ones.
I can't quite see your eyelids at the moment, so
yeah, I think you're balanced. I'm listening to you and I'm going, uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, look, I have to say, it was when I first started face mapping, I was actually told that I had, that I was, of the, in that barrel of, being having strong intimacy requirements. I'm like, no, that's not me. And it must have taken me a couple of weeks to really think about it and go, yeah, I think that really is me. So, yeah.
I think that's the thing, someone will tell you something and you go like, no, because that's not how you see yourself, but that's how the world, or whatever information you're getting, from either the scientific side of it or the spiritual side of it. And then you sit on it and then you go like, actually, yeah, they had a point, and you've got to come back and say, well, what you said.
Yeah. And then, it's information that can help you, have a lot more understanding of yourself.
Which is important.
Absolutely. And then being able to understand others as well and how then you interact with them. So, for me, realizing that I was choosing people that weren't emotionally available or seeking the same kind of connection as I was a waste of my time. So it was a really good lesson.
And I think that's the thing. And that's, for me, and I'm so happy you've just said that, because this is part of personal growth. And I keep bashing this around me, and every time I'm doing a podcast, on how important it is to keep learning. There are so many books out there, there are podcasts, there are YouTube videos, because learning about yourself and even getting a coach, and connecting, because the more you grow as a person, the more you evolve, and I think part of the reason some people don't really go into personal growth is they're scared of what the entourage is going to say. But you're living your own life, and okay, fine, maybe you'll lose a few people, but you'll be so much happier. Why are you carrying, these toxic people around you that are basically blocking you from being your best version? So exactly. All of this personal growth is essential to people. So I'm really chuffed that you mentioned this. Yeah. Tristan, lovely having you. Where can people find you?
So they can, my business is called Inspired Energy. I have a website, www.inspiredn for Nelly, R for Robert, G for goat.com.au.
We'll put it in the description, not to worry.
Yeah, put it in the description. On Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Please connect. I'd love to chat. I'm happy to share as much as anybody wants to know about face mapping and how they can connect better with people, because I love that people connect.
That's the thing, I think that's the thing. Social media, which was really supposed to really connect people, somehow has disconnected people. So it can be. I know we were talking about
Yeah, I know we were talking about being on the train earlier, and that's one of my pet hates, that I get on the train and people are just looking at their phones, not looking at each other and not connecting. So if I can help people connect, that would be wonderful.
I'm with you on that one. Tristan, thank you so much, and we shall hear from you again soon. Bye.
Absolute pleasure. Bye.
There you have it, my lovelies. After my conversation with Tristan, I started looking more intensively at people's faces, especially when it comes to dating. And boy, is Tristan right. That's a tip that I will probably be using for the rest of my life. If you'd like to connect with Tristan, you can find her on Facebook and Instagram through Inspired Energy, or email her at info@inspiredenergy.com.o. As always, all the details will be on the show's notes. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends and family and leave me a comment rating on the platform that you use. You can also support the podcast by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link. You can join the conversation in my Facebook group, The Happy Curator Podcast, and keep updated by following me on Instagram and Facebook under The Happy Curator Podcast. Until next time.